Please take your seats at 6 p.m. Knock, knock, who's there? County Board meeting. All right. Is everybody in the room? All right, let's call to order. Excuse me. Champaign County Board Committee of the Whole, December 10th, 6:01 p.m. Please, roll call, please.
McGuire.
I am officially over.
Michaels. Here. Mitchell. Here.
Here.
Richards. Here. Rosales. Schrader.
Here.
Schwartz. Here. Alex. Here. Bergson. Here. Carter. Carter.
Here.
Howard.
Present.
Esri.
Here.
Harper.
Here.
Hartke.
Here.
James.
Here.
Jay.
Here.
Kibler.
Here.
Langenheim.
Here.
Maxwell. Hertz.
Here.
I don't mind.
I'd like a motion for the approval of minutes, Committee of the Whole, October 15th, and
So
Committee of
moved.
the Whole, November 12th. Are you first, or Mr. Mitchell, second?
Yeah.
Jeff?
Our
Okay.
district needs to be represented.
Any changes or comments on the minutes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. I'd like a motion approval of the agenda, please. So moved. I got Mr. James and Lloyd, was that you? Mr. Carter? Changes? We have one change on the Mental Health Board. Please take a look. You're going to change the end date to December 31st, 2017. So it'll run from January 1, 14 to December 31st, 17. It's a 4-year term. Any other changes? Aye?
Aye.
I'm sorry. Approval? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. I had a little brain freeze there for a second. Okay, well, public participation, we only have one. Lynn, is it Branham? Is that Lynn, please? Turn on your microphone, please. Thank you.
There we go.
Did you see this?
There we go.
You betcha.
It's my pleasure to be here tonight, and the reason why I wanted to come before you tonight is I do confess that last month I was astonished when I read on the front page of our local newspaper the article with the headline, "Group: Pretrial Services Program is a Dud." My reaction was, what group? What pretrial services program? And it ends up, as you know, there was a memo that was sent to the county board from one court official and several individuals about a purported 5-week test of an ostensible pretrial services program. And of course, the memo recommended that the board not fund pretrial services program. It's my understanding that the funding's going to be preserved, but that all of this is basically on hold. And so I want to give you some feedback that I hope will inform decision-making and help us move with dispatch to implement pretrial services in the county. As you know, both ILPP and the Community Justice Task Force, of which I was a member, recommended that the county adopt a comprehensive pretrial services program. It's just considered a very basic component of any criminal justice system. And I'd expressed my concerns about the memo that was transmitted to you and was reported about in the media, and I could not express my concerns to you in person. My father was gravely ill, but it's my understanding that my email was read into the public record. kind of in short, it's just felt like to me, like if the Wright brothers had been experimenting, building an airplane, and they built an airplane with no wings, and then they pushed it off a cliff, and it crashed, and they reported that airplanes can't fly, and then nobody ever built an airplane again. That, in short, is what I think has happened thus far. But rather than resting my own conclusions based on my expertise in correctional and sentencing law and policy, on the work of the ILPP and the work of the Community Justice Task Force, I contacted the organization that is the premier expert on pretrial services in the country. It is the Pretrial Justice Institute. I encourage you to visit its website. I provided PJI with ILPP's report, the task force's report, and the memo that had been tendered to you about the purported pilot project. I asked PJI 2 questions. Had these individuals indeed implemented a pretrial services program? And second, was this truly a pilot project on which the county board or anybody else could rest any decisions, including funding and staffing decisions? The first question was answered in a letter to the county board from Timothy Murray, the executive director of PJI, and I will give the chair and the county administrator a copy of this letter after my remarks are concluded. But the letter, it's a 3-page letter, and I'm going to ask also it be disseminated to all the county board members. But it recounts the research, it recounts uniform recommendations of national organizations comprised of judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, police, sheriffs. The work of these groups is very impressive. But after recounting this body of research and the uniform recommendations, the letter provides this summary, and I'll read just a bit of it. In summary, the key is to conduct a risk assessment using a validated tool at the defendant's initial appearance in court, and then matching release conditions to the identified risks. That was not happening during the pilot project. Under the pilot approach, the risk assessment was held back for 7 days and used only on those with certain bond amounts, waiting 7 days before applying the risk assessment tool and restricting the application of that tool to a certain population, one that had already been assessed as being lower risk by virtue of the bond amount ceiling of $50,000, misses the point of pretrial risk assessment and risk mitigation. The results of the test of that procedure, therefore, yield no valuable information on the question of the impact of comprehensive pretrial services in Champaign County. The letter then recounts several studies, one that talks about how even very short periods of incarceration in jail extend the criminal careers of individuals. I'd like you to understand what that means.
Ms. Branham?
Oh, I'm sorry, have I exceeded the time?
Afraid so.
Okay.
I gave
All
you a
right.
little
So
extra, actually.
I will tender copies
Please do.
to you. All right.
Thank you
very
so
good.
much.
Thank you.
Are there any other participants in public participation? All right, I close public participation. Is there any communications from the board? Mr. Quisenberry?
Yes, I just would like to mention that a week ago Saturday, I attended the memorial service for Steve Burgess. I know many of you met him during his time promoting the naming of the courthouse after his father, and it was a sad occasion when I learned that he had passed away.
Thank you. Ms. Busey, you had.
Just, you will notice that each of you now has a microphone. These microphones have the capability to be voice activated. However, we tried that at county facilities, and it doesn't work real well. Plus, they're activated when you don't want them to be. So we will turn on voice activation for all roll call votes, because you guys never turn on your mics when you say yes for a roll call. So that's when they will be turned on. Otherwise, they're not voice activated, so continue pressing the button when you need to talk. Thanks.
Thank you, Deb. Any other communication? All right, thank you. I will move to Justice and Social Services. And we have Ms. Berkson.
I believe there's somebody here from the VAC for a report.
Good evening. For you guys that don't know me, I'm Brad Gould. I'm the superintendent of the Veteran Assistance Commission. And we finally finished our first year. For those who are new to the board, this all process started in late 2010 with a group of veterans who really didn't know what they were doing, and I was part of one of those people. And then we finally got hooked up with a group of that the county set up, the VAC committee, and that was with Ralph Langheim, Astrid Bergson, Lloyd Carter, Stephanie Holderfield, and Stan James. And it took us about a year and a half with us and about 6 months with the committee to finally get the board to approve it, and we opened doors 1 December. We didn't know what we were doing at first, but it actually turned out to be a good year, and I've got a little bit of facts for you. And we based everything off DuPage County because that's about the only information we got to know. But we got to assist 185 veterans. 88 of them was for rent, 87 utilities, 7 for mortgages, and 3 of them for food. And we projected 147 people we were going to help. Office visits, we projected 427, and we actually had 468. Phone calls, we projected 514, we had 828. And public speaking, we had projected 24, and I actually went out and made 33. And we worked really hard to get in the community involved. Somehow I got roped into it by the chairman of the VAC to participate in the Muscular Dystrophy Association and got locked up behind bars, but we felt like that was getting the word out. I know a lot of people ask about marketing. How this word got out. We do not need any marketing whatsoever. Thanks to the Salvation Army, the Illinois Veterans Affairs, they do pretty good at doing marketing for us and sending people our way. So back in November of this year, we had elections for the VAC board, which is made up of veterans, and luckily they voted that I get to keep my job for another year, which I really appreciated it. But we knew we had to make some changes because in the first 6 months of last year, December, we didn't see a single person because between myself and the auditor's office, we were making out forms that we could both live with. From January to May, we spent probably 45% of our budget. From June to November, we spent 55% of our budget because people knew we were available. So what we came up with to help this year, especially since this is a 13-month year, is that last year the most a veteran could get in any one fiscal year was $1,500, and we actually lowered that to $1,000 because some people were going to take whatever they can take. They would come in and they only had $50 left. They would ask for $50 to help with their rent. So we lowered that to be able to help more veterans. And second is that we saw a lot of people that somehow, I don't understand it, ran up a $2,000 electrical bill. But then they'd want to come, then they moved in with someone else, and then they must have got thrown out of that other place, and they wanted help with that $2,000 electrical bill that was for at least 1 to 2 years old. We will not honor that this year because this program is set up for a hand up, and that's way past being a hand up. So, and then the last thing we did is that we realized since so much of the percentage of the budget was spent in those short months is that now we have a figure that once it reaches, and this year it's $6,275. Once I reach that in each month, I will no longer give out funds, for that way funds will extend throughout the course of the whole year. Because if I keep giving out funds, I could see funds running out as early as March or April. So that was the proposal that I proposed to the board. the board passed, and we've already started. And to let you guys know, I have no more funds left for the month of December because we've reached that $6,275. So, but all in all, it was a good year. We were lucky, September of last year and September this year, that the training I have to go to, I was able to get a scholarship in the state of Illinois, paid for it, so it didn't cost the county any money. Another thing is I can also fill out VA forms, and when people apply for VA, they don't have to tell me if they got any disability whatsoever. But I know for a fact that it's over $5,000 of people telling me that they got disability, federal money coming back to that individual, and hopefully they're spending this in Champaign County. So that's at least $5,000 a month that we've brought back in to Champaign County. I can also help out with burial funds. Just the other day, a lady wanted a marker for her uncle's grave, and usually the funeral homes will take care of it. We took care of it. She got it back in 3 weeks, and she actually took the time to give me a call and say thanks. So that's just some of the things we can do. And I will entertain any questions that anybody would like to have.
Yeah?
Yeah, Brad, first, thank you. Yeah, you're doing a wonderful job. You're taking a look at your opportunities, and you're making changes and improvements, and to me, that's showing progress. I have a quick question for you concerning insurance. With the Affordable Care Act, are we directing, or can we help any of the veterans get that type of insurance?
Well, I should have brought that up, but thanks for the question. I got a briefing over in Danville about October, maybe September. I went over there for a 2-hour class, and if they are eligible for VA care, then that covers the Affordable Care Act. And a lot of people a lot of those office visits were people stopping in and asking if that covered it. And that was about the extent of the question at that, at that stage. They just want to make sure. The problem is their spouses are not covered under that because they're not eligible for the VA. So.
Thank you.
Betsy? Oh, Ralph. Oh, Ralph. Yeah.
I move that that report be accepted and placed on file.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Wait, Patsy?
I too add my thanks to the work that you're doing. Mine are just information questions. I'm on the website now looking at the board, but I don't see listed who are the members of the board. Can you tell us that?
Yes, I can. It's actually, there is a list out there somewhere on the website. It should
Okay.
say board members. But the president of the board is Ron Hubert, and he's with Disabled American Veterans. And when I say that, a lot of us are members of a lot of different
Right,
organizations.
I understand.
Then the vice president, he is new this year. He is John Maggio. He is a member of the Urbana VFW Post 630 right down the street. We have a treasurer, but we have no funds. His name's Ron Dufresne. He's a member of the AMVETS. The judge advocate is Ray Elliott, and he's a member of the Marine Corps League. We do have a secretary, and all she does is take notes and then give them to me after the meeting, and I actually do all that work. And that's Ron's Sandy Hubert, and she was gracious enough to do it. So, and then we have 2 delegates at large, and one of them is Jim Ellis, and he's with the VFW in Rantoul. And then we have a new delegate at large, and his name is Gary Massey, and he's with the American Legion in Urbana. So that is our board members.
Thank you. And my second information question, you've now had a year in your office, and during that time, have you been able to build bridges between your office and the other social service agencies?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
if you can't help up to one point, you can
Right. I
guide
have
them.
a slew of numbers for the IDVA social workers. I also been able to hook up with the Salvation Army. Also, the lady from Lowe's actually calls me if she has a job opening first. If I have veterans, I will get a hold of them. For some reason, when they come in to see me, they tell me their whole life information. So I know what a lot of these people do need and keep mental notes. We've also, they also have a veterans person at the IDES, and we meet at least once a month to talk about veterans and jobs like that. And then Amanda here in the building actually sends me all the emails for jobs, and I try to get as many veterans jobs as I possibly can. Thank you.
Aaron? Lloyd?
Turn it on.
I just want to say I enjoyed working with you, and I think that's a good program. And I just want to tell the chair that we get a new handbook. I received mine on the new medical program and a letter. So it tells you in there how the new medical program is working.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Well, thank you very much.
All right, just one last thing. I'd
Oh,
like
yeah.
to thank Deb and her staff for helping me out. And I also like to thank JJ and his staff for keeping me in line majority of the time. So, but thank you, folks.
Thank you. Okay. Now the request for release of a RFP for reentry program. Any discussion? Well, I guess we need a motion. Okay, any questions? Any discussion? Yeah.
We had some dissatisfaction with this last month and some people who said they wanted more input. Can you tell me what input you got on this and if there were any changes made from the status of it last month?
Yes, the changes are marked in yellow in the thing at your desk.
Oh. Could you say it out loud so the people at home can know?
From the first, okay, yes. Oh, yes.
What's in yellow is what changed from the version that you had in your packet that's at your desk tonight. And these recommendations were made by Board Member Chris Alex just to clarify a couple of issues that we anticipate this will be the schedule, but it could change. And on page 4, documenting that the evaluation of proposer responses will be an evaluation of responses to Section 5 of this RFP, which hadn't previously been clear. Since the version that you had last month, there has been a rewriting of that section in Section 3 that's numbered. We had recommendations from Lynn Branham for some additional language there. So numbers 1 through 8 used to be 1 through 4 and have been expanded just for more clarity with regard to how these responses would be evaluated. Those are the primary changes. The other changes to the membership of the evaluation committee, which in addition to those who were listed last month, will now also include Community Justice Task Force Representative Benita Rollins-Gay and Don Moore Boys and Girls Club Executive Director Sam Banks.
Thank you, Ms. Busey.
Patsy?
I want to thank my fellow county board members for this extra month to look this over. And second, to express my appreciation about the 2 members who have been added to the committee for the evaluation of the RFP.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. And the monthly reports?
I'll make a motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any other business? I don't have a report.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Berkson. Let's move to Mr. Quisenberry in policy. Let's swing the chair this way.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.
All right, good evening, everyone. First thing on policy is an appointment for the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District. Actually, two positions for a term that runs January 1st, 2014 through December 31st, 2018. Mr. Chair,
Yes, I'd like to appoint Bradley Deal and Margaret Chaplin to this position.
do we have a second? Lorraine seconds. Do we have a discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion passes. Next, we have appointment to the Mental Health Board for two positions for a term from January 1st, 2014 through December 31st, 2017, an edit from your paper packet. And Mr. Chair, your
Thank you.
nominees.
I'd like to appoint Tom Moore and Susan Fowler to these positions.
Second. Was that you, Mr. Kibler? Yes. Okay. Second by Mr. Kibler. Any discussion? Ms. Petrie?
Is just again, an information question.
A what? I'm sorry.
Since the chair made a correction on the term date for the Mental Health Board, can I safely assume that the term dates are correct for the appointments to the MTD? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passed unanimously.
Yes.
Next appointment is for the Community Action Board for one position, a term of January 1st, 2014 through December 31st, 2016. Mr. Chair.
Applicant appointment from Ms. Wednesday Medlin. Thank you.
Seconded
Yes.
by Diane. Any discussion? Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. It also passes unanimously. Also in your packet is information on the resignation of Ron Bensel from the Clement Cemetery Board. And we don't take any action on that. Next, we have a report from the county clerk, his semi-annual November 2013 report. Actually, there's also the November 2013 report, and I would entertain an omnibus motion to accept those and place them on file.
So moved.
Mr. Rosales, seconded by Mr. James. Any questions or discussion? I don't see the clerk here tonight. I think he got tickets to the basketball game. All those in favor of putting this on file, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Next, Section C, you have in front of you a request for the reevaluation of the investigator position by the Job Content Evaluation Committee. I'd entertain a motion to do that. All right, moved by Mr. McGuire, seconded by Ms. Bergson. I will remind you that when we passed the budget, we included money for an additional investigator, so this is part of that process. And we will see this again once it comes back from the Job Content Evaluation Committee. So any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right. And moving right along, what?
Very nicely.
Yes.
Moving right along.
Thank you. I'll take credit for that then.
Okay. thanks a lot.
Next, we have, in Section D, we have the report from Administrative Services for November. I'd entertain a motion to accept and place on file. Moved by Mr. Langenheim, second by Mr. Kurtz. Any questions for Deb regarding the report? Okay, also, we have biannual, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion passes. We also have a biannual report for EEO, and I would also ask that for a motion to accept that and place it on file.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Esri, seconded by Mr. McGuire. Deb, do you want to give us just a little bit of highlights of that?
This report was prepared by Amanda Tucker, who is our HR generalist, and it is entirely statistical in nature, but gives you a snapshot overview of the workforce of Champaign County.
Okay, any questions? I would say if you review this report, you can see that there are a couple areas where we may need to focus on increasing our diversity in our workforce as compared to how the county has moved over time. So I'll leave that to your review. That's it with regard, oh, yes. All those in favor of accepting that and placing it on file, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that's all for the business on the agenda. Did anybody have any other business that they wanted to bring up for policy appointments? Okay, you'll find at your desk, under the chair's report, you'll find at your desk a summary of a project that's been discussed for a while with regard to moving the board to a paperless agenda. I have talked to both of the caucus chairs about having a couple of board members participate in a pilot to see if this would actually be a good idea. If you look at the memo, you can see that there's both a potential of saving some money and a potential of saving some time with regard to efficiency to go down this route. But rather than just assuming that and going down the path, we're going to try a pilot. I'd entertain any questions with regard to this. Yes,
The staff time, is that to prepare the agenda or to photocopy it?
can you summarize that, Deb?
The staff time reflected here is specifically only for photocopying and putting together the envelopes to go in the mail.
Yes, Ms. Petrie.
Just slightly tongue-in-cheek, since I'm always pushing for this. If in fact it turns out that even we save the lowest number projected here on your sheet, it would be wonderful if those funds were then put in a budget line for professional development for, Ms. Busey is smiling, she knows I always say this.
All right, Mr. Schrader. She's already spoken, though.
Thanks.
We'll come back to her.
Our RPC has been, the board meetings have been paperless. Deb, do you have any idea, or have you talked to anybody or RPC, how much money they're saving over there by going paperless?
Well, are they paperless or do they provide you a paper packet at the meeting?
They have limited amounts of paper packets at the meeting, but nothing is mailed out.
Right.
So there's no staff time for preparing and postage and other things like that. And I forget, Patsy, Al, do you remember how long we've been going? She's not paying attention.
Yeah.
Al, do you remember how long we've been going?
We've been doing it more than a year now. And I guess I would not ask for a paper packet if I had it on an iPad, which I don't have right now. But I think the pilot program might help out on that. But the packets at RPC are just pretty monstrous at times because of all the contracts we have. So I think there's a substantial savings when it comes to copying and to staff time.
I have Mr. Kibler next, then Mr. Rosales.
Very short question. I assume this number doesn't reflect big bulk items such as the budget that we try to keep in paper as avoiding electronic copies circulating around. Is the budget included in this, or what is not included in the paperless route?
Well, we don't print the budget anymore. The budget document.
The
Is
one
that
you
what you're
mail
asking
to
me?
us.
What?
The one you mail to us.
Oh,
Because I know that in the past you've said, we would like to try to keep, since it's a fluid document, to try to keep it not electronic, but just send you out a paper copy of it first. So there are documents in the past that we've tried to keep more paper as opposed to electronic. So does that mean everything is moving to the electronic side, do you think? Or just the aspects like your normal weekly packet?
I believe we would be attempting to move everything to electronics. We would certainly move everything related to agendas and agenda packets to an electronic version instead of keeping paper versions. We still have an issue of the fact that we don't have a document management system in place to do entirely electronic documents management throughout the county. But this cost right here is just for the paper and copying and postage of the packets that we mail out to board members for board meetings.
Okay, next is Mr. Rosales.
Are we going to be given the option, because I do believe that there are some board members that don't have computers and don't have electronic access? So I was indicating, is there an option for those members to opt to still receive a hard copy?
Well, the intent of the pilot is to actually identify some equipment that would be issued to board members for this purpose.
Oh.
So if you don't have one, and we go to and we decide this is going to be successful, you will get a device to receive this with. Okay?
Thank you.
Next, I have Mr. Richards.
I think this is a good proposal. We, county board members are not paid a lot of money, and some of us have laptops and tablets that we bring to meetings, but if we can identify a good product, I think it can make it easier for county board members to do their jobs. And I don't think county board members should be expected to buy a tablet to do their job. Like I said, some of us already have them, but you shouldn't be expected to. And I wanted to go back to a point that I had asked you at caucus, Mr. Chair. I know we've talked about, and it talks about a little bit in the memo, some of the efficiencies and some of the savings, but if you could talk, since I think that's the point that you guys are stressing and why you want to move to this, a little bit more about your thinking on that.
Well, the thinking is that if we don't have to prepare a lot of documents and mail them out, that'll save time for staff. The one issue that I want to bring up with regard to what you're saying is access to network, because that is another impact, and that is also part of the thing we'll be discussing as we go through the pilot as to whether we have to assist county board members with being able to get access to the documents online. Right now, could you give me a little more detail on what you're looking for as far as more thoughts?
No, that pretty much covers it.
Okay, that's about the size of it. Okay, Mr. Langenheim, I have you next.
Yeah, I've got it. I see that the expected savings here is $1,871 to $111. Is that true?
That is based on the potential variable cost of what device we choose to use. The 111 would be if we choose a more expensive device. The higher number would be a cheaper device.
I'm not particularly impressed with that sum. And being one of those who would be termed a dinosaur and proud of it, I'm happier with hard copy than with the internet or whatever. So I don't see that we're really getting very far ahead here.
Duly noted, Mr. Langenheim.
What?
I note your comment.
Thank you.
All right, Astrid's next, and then Rachel.
Would the form in which we got these things Would the form in which we got these things be such that we could make notes on them, scribble on them as we do on these?
That remains to be determined.
Yeah, I think that's part of the pilot. The device that we're looking at, I think, is a Windows tablet, and it does have some stylus and annotation capabilities, but I can't speak to how well it works because I haven't used it. So that would be something that would be a plus.
Yes, I think so.
Yep. Okay, Rachel, I'm going to let you slip in here even though Chris hasn't talked yet. Microphone, please, Mr. Alex.
$1,871 to $111 per what?
Annual.
Year? Okay.
Well, my main concern was taking notes, but my suggestion is, since I see several tablets around the room, how about if we start opting out of paper packets for those who really don't need them at this point and start saving money?
So, some of us have already opted out to save the county money.
But for others, I think some people here probably it wouldn't work out. The other suggestion is, I think this should be something that be turned back in when somebody leaves the board.
Yes,
So
it would
I'm not sure
remain the
why we have
property
an
of the
annual-
county.
So why do we have an annual cost? Are we buying it every?
They have a we're not exactly sure how long tablets are going to live in the world yet, because they're still fairly new. But a laptop, a 3-year to 4-year replacement cycle is what most IT shops use for a laptop. So a 4-year replacement cycle for a tablet is a good first guess. So that's replacing it every 4 years, I believe, right?
Yes.
Deb? Stan?
So like Ralph, I'm not a dinosaur, but I'm getting there. But the concerns I have is like in my area, I live out in a rural area, and getting any type of wireless service or anything is very hard to do. And I know I drop calls all the time, and I've tried all the new stuff. I do like it. I think it's the way of the future, and we're all pushing that way. But I like to sit here personally, and I like to doodle on my papers when someone's talking way too long, or I feel in the mood of doing something different, and flipping back and forth to a page to say, okay, wait a minute. We talked about that, and I've watched Diane, and I've watched Chris, and they're pounding away, and to me, you're distracted. You're distracted more, and you don't really get into it. And then I worry about some of the folks in here. I see how they handle things. You know, we got to have some sort of backup for those that may drop it, slip it, forget it, don't charge it. You know, I just see a host of issues. It all sounds great when you're talking about it, but all those things are going to come up. And I know it's a pilot program that we're going to need to look at, but I just had to throw my two, and I, for one, don't have the internet because I just get overwhelmed with junk emails all the time at work. So what I try to do when I'm home is relax. That's why I go home. So I would be one, and I can't speak for others, but I would hope the county would pick up that tab because I'm sure not going to pay $15 a month. Thank you.
Yeah, Stan, that's the whole point of doing a pilot, to find out what's not right with this. But I suggest you stop by McDonald's for some coffee, because they have free Wi-Fi, and you can hang out with some of the farmers there. All right, next, Mr. Mitchell.
I'm all for advancing technology. I'm thinking that, you know, there's probably a lot of good uses that you could do. I mean, included in your agenda, I mean, I could see that department heads could do video, you know, for more explanation, so that, I mean, you know, you're getting a lot more than just, you know, than just the printed information. So I think that's good. On the other hand, I'm not so crazy about the county supporting the equipment to facilitate this. I mean, if you figure out a basic amount, I would just see a stipend go to the members, and the expectation is either they invest that into equipment, you know, whether it's at the baseline level or want to spend a little bit more money and get, you know, something with more bells and whistles on it. So that'd be a recommendation I'd make.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Richards, did you have your hand up?
Yeah. Some of our comparable counties, especially Peoria, have been doing this for at least a couple years. Do we know how they've worked through some of these issues we're talking about? I know one of the issues that they were talking about a couple years ago was, would you allow the member to just buy it and then do whatever you want with it? Or are you going to keep this strictly a county tablet? And I see people shaking their head, but they did go with letting people buy it if they want. Have we talked with any of those counties, and what were their experiences?
I've talked generally with other counties about going to a paperless system, but I haven't talked with them specifically about those kinds of questions. Part of our reason for recommending that we issue a standard tablet every 4 years is that you're all on the same platform, you all have the same operating system. We could roll out presentations to your platform, so you wouldn't have to try and struggle to see one of the screens when presentations are being done. We can't do that if there's 10 or 12 different types of devices being operated in the room at the time. The other thing, I do think you might have an issue, because if you just provide a stipend, that's income I'd have to ask the state's attorney how that is impacted in regards to your salary has to be set 6 months in advance of each session and all that kind of thing. So I don't know exactly how that would work.
I think we would have, if we decided that that might be a better way to go, we'd have to approach it as a reimbursement rather than a stipend to stay out of the income mess. I have Ms. Michaels next and then Mr. Jay.
Real quickly, it just reminds me of textbooks. You know, you sign a form with a textbook. A lot of the schools are thinking about going to tablets and things for textbooks. So I kind of liken it to that.
Okay, Mr. Jay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Michaels and Mr. Esri have agreed to be in this pilot program. I think if we could get through the pilot program, we could answer a lot of the questions that we're asking now. So I think it's worth a try.
All right, I don't see any more hands. So we have, I do have the Mr. Richards' nominations for that. So we are going to proceed with a pilot. And well, you'll see your neighbor using it and ask him how it's going, so. The other thing I wanted to mention on under my report, specifically, a side angle to this is county-issued email accounts for board members. I was kind of a guinea pig because of other reasons a few weeks back to get a county email address, and so one of the hopes would be that if individuals wanted to get a county email address, and maybe down the road with this tablet situation, we could even issue the tablets with that email configured on it so that you could have all of your communications and your information on the device that's issued by the county. I don't know, Andy, are you ready to take other comers if they're ready for an email address? So if you're ready to go ahead and you're savvy and want an address that's associated with the county for your county business, that we're ready. We're ready for that to go ahead. Any questions about that? I think a lot of the other municipalities already do that kind of thing. Ms. Brookson?
Are we going to vote on it, or is it just?
I don't think it requires a vote.
Okay.
Mr. Rosales?
Who are the members participating in the pilot program?
We just heard that Mr. Esri and Ms. Michaels from the Republican caucus, and Mr. Richards, you had two that you nominated.
Yeah, Ms. Cowart and Ms. Petrie are going to be the Democratic guinea pigs.
Okay.
And I'll be on it as well.
Ms. Cowart?
Now, you said email addresses will be assigned to the tablet.
If you're ready to try that, it would just be an email address that is at the county address.
Okay, because basically we'll just be using these tabs for county business only, right?
That would be the intent. It is county property, yes.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Mitchell.
For the sake of uniformity, I would suggest that all the board members just be assigned an email address, and we'd just be able to communicate that way.
Okay, we'll look into what a organized roll out of that would, how that would go, because again, there's a support component to all of this that we're discussing here, which our county IT staff is volunteering to step up to as we go down this. That's true, right, Andy? You're on board with this. I'm not voluntolding him to do this. But we'll look into that, Mr. Mitchell. Okay. I also, that's a couple things that aren't on here. Some things that I want to have on your radar for the first quarter of next year. We need to review our county board rules and see if there are any changes that we need to make. I'm specifically concerned about tightening up our rules on the selection of chair because of the length it took us to work through that last time. So that may not be changing how it's done, but clarifying in our rules so everybody understands how it's going to be done before the next time we we go through that, which is not that far away. It's about a year away, if you're keeping track. So sometime in January, February, we will dive into our county board rules. And the other thing that's requiring some review is, most of you, I hope, know that the county board has a strategic plan. Its last revision, I believe, was almost 2 years ago. Is that correct, Deb? It can't be too much longer ago than that, because I haven't been on the board that long, but. 2011, okay. So we're going to, in the past, we have had an ad hoc committee take the strategic plan and review it and solicit input to update it and make it current. And so sometime in the first quarter, I see soliciting members of an ad hoc committee to again refresh our strategic plan. So if you're interested in that, or if you have ideas or concerns or anything with regard to the strategic plan or updating our rules, please drop me a note, give me a call, invite me to coffee. Al says I'll pay for it. And that's some of the work that we'll be doing in the spring. Yes, Lloyd?
Me, myself, if we go into that extent, then we need to have a meeting. We need to sit down and go through this whole system. And if it needs fixing, fix it. Not no little bit here, no memo here. Sit down and do it right.
Yeah, I think you're
Let
right.
us all get together, sit down, and have a meeting on it.
And I think there are several things that could roll into a study session, of which the rules would be a major focus of that study session. Is that what you're suggesting, Mr. Carter? Okay, Mr. Alex.
Yeah, I would like to as the guy who ended up stuck in the hot seat when we chose the chair the last time, I would definitely say we would benefit from having some prior agreed-upon rules as to how the voting and nominations and everything went, because that would have made it a lot easier. And if we can get it done before the primaries and before the election, when we don't know who the candidates for chair or who might want to be the candidates are, that'll make it a lot less political if we can get this sorted out ahead of time. So I'm certainly in favor of whether it's study session, talking to the caucuses, talking here, whatever we have to do to come up with I don't really even care what the procedure is, as long as it's written down and reasonably loophole-free.
All right, thank you, Mr. Alex. And with that, I will say that for consent, I have 2 and 3, and that is it. Because C does not go to full board.
Thank you, Mr. Quisenberry. And we have Mr. Alex coming up in the batter's box.
So there'll be 4 distributed or 6 distributed?
No computer, no tablet?
No.
Hard copy?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First item on the agenda for finance is the treasurer's report. They're available on the website. The treasurer is not here, but if there are any questions about it, we will do our best. Would somebody like to move that this be accepted and placed on file? I see Mr. Esri, I see Mr. Kibler. Any discussion, comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next for the auditor's report, we do have the auditor. What can you tell us about your monthly report?
Good evening. Your monthly report, of course, the fiscal year 2013 ended November 30th. So as we are now in December, we're starting to have the end of the year cleanup things starting to come through. Remember, you did change your procedures when we changed the fiscal year, so there's now a 60-day closeout period. So the numbers that you see are what was in the system on November 30th, but of course, there's going to be some tightening up of things as we move forward.
Thank you, sir. May I have a motion to accept the auditor's report and place it on file? Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Hartke. Any further questions for the auditor? Ms. Petrie has a question.
Based on your statement, can I take away that you're quite satisfied with the way we've ended up the county monetarily?
I don't think we're at a point where we can answer that, but
Okay.
thus far,
I'll
As long as
remember
things
to
have
ask it later
continued,
then.
you
Okay,
know, yeah, but, you know, until the final numbers are in, we,
okay, thank you.
Ms. Michaels?
I'd like to make note that we really shouldn't be having expenses before the budget's approved.
you're talking about the bad purchases
Yes,
list,
I
which I think you need to vote on accepting this before we
Okay.
can talk about that.
Okay.
Purchases
Yeah,
not following
right.
purchasing policies taken up at the county board meeting, so
Yeah.
it's just for our information at this point. Any additional comments, questions? I'm sorry, did I miss anybody? Okay, thank you. You want to stick around for a minute until we
Yeah,
get to the
could I
audit
speak to,
item?
I did give you the purchases, I just didn't want to go out of order.
Oh,
there
sure,
for you.
I'm sorry. All in favor of accepting the auditor's report and placing it on file, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, go on.
Okay, the bad purchases list, for your information, you do vote on it at the full board meeting. It's, you know, a couple of things that were paid out of the previous fiscal year because bills finally came. The one item that Ms. Michaels mentioned was a purchase that was done in October before you had passed a budget, so that's why it's on this list. That's from the Access Initiative. And then some bills that were paid without receipts. But what happened with the Access Initiative thing is he paid for a conference on a credit card in October, and of course, you didn't pass your budget until November, and that's against policy.
Thank you.
And Mr. Holton will be here at your full meeting to talk. He'd love to talk about the Verizon bill. He's quite proud of that Verizon bill, so he would love to. He'd love to bring you. It is. I'm not exaggerating. It is this tall, and he would love to talk about it.
All right, if you want to stick around for a minute, we'll get to your budget amendment shortly. Next item on the agenda is the nursing home monthly report. We received an email from Mr. Maxwell, and Mr. Hartke and Mr. Maxwell are here and would be happy to speak to us maybe. Josh?
Yeah, three things I want to update from ongoing stuff. First off, the food service management contract is in place. We have a chef on site that is already moving on things like quality and sanitation, primary, and presentation even. And that's moving ahead very well. There's a lot of hope with this turning out. Also, we have officially hired a director of nursing, which is very good news. We've been doing that search for a year. And that position's from a lady who worked with the farm. She was director of nursing at a Farmer City nursing home that has a fairly good reputation. So this should be a good move for us. Plus, kind of as a side and personal note, the ozone laundry project that I was working on over there has gone into full swing, and the estimates are that it's going to save us around $20,000 a year in energy and commodities, and that's not even getting to the environmental benefits of it. So, and potential medical benefits from the fact that less chemicals in the laundry means possibly less bed sores and things like that from the chemicals in the clothing. So those are all very good things coming out of the nursing home right now.
Good news, Mr. Kurtz.
Yeah, Josh, I want to thank you for that. That was excellent. That's the kind of thing that I would like to see from the rest of the board, those kind of suggestions that would help out. I also want to thank Gary. It was an excellent report, very concise and simple, easy to read and understand what's happening at the nursing home. I want to thank both you guys. You guys are doing an excellent job over there. Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I just had one. I noticed in the memo that Mr. Maxwell sent out talking about hiring the dietary director, essentially two people, and there was talking about advertising for those positions. It wasn't clear to me, I thought that the company that we were contracting with was going to bring those people in. It looks now like they're proposing they be hired locally. I just wanted to figure out what was going on there.
The company has proposed that we try to hire them locally, and they've made some suggestions.
Mr. Harkey.
The idea being that they're located, it's hard to move people for that kind of salary, so they're hoping to hire internally, but then supervise the management and the training of those people.
Okay, so they're essentially saying, well, we should try to hire locally. If we can't find anybody, presumably they'll be able to bring somebody in. Okay, thank you. That's what I assumed.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions about the nursing home? Seeing none, we'll move on to the budget. We have Budget Amendment 13-00057, increased appropriations of $8,076 for the auditor's office. May I have a motion to send this to the full board with a recommendation for approval? Mr. James and Mr. Kibler. Would you like to speak to this?
Sure, my memo pretty much explains it. These are for payouts of vacation and personal hours and county reserve time for people who have been here a great length of time, for 3 employees who left during the last year. We had one person leave right after I took office who moved to California. I had a secretary who retired in September, and then we had one other accountant that left to care for a terminally ill family member out of state. So this was just money that wasn't budgeted for last year because we expected that these folks would stick with us.
Thank you. Comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And our next amendment is also related to the auditor, sort of. This is Budget Amendment 13-00058. Increased appropriations of $4,400 for additional costs related to the external audit. And I don't know, Deb, do you want to speak to that? I think the memo was pretty much described in the memo. Can I have a motion to send this to the full board with a recommendation for approval? Mr. Quisenberry and Ms. Michaels.
I think there was a memo in your packet, but effectively, the additional time that it took to complete the audit this year required that our outside auditor staff remain engaged with us, and that resulted in about 40 extra hours of service that would not have normally been anticipated. They're proposing billing us for that at a highly discounted rate of $110. The principal and the 2 other people who worked on our audit are paid substantially more than that on an hourly basis. So this was a compromise kind of on both sides, that we're acknowledging that because of the changes in the auditor's office staff, there were delays, and it did take an additional almost 3 months to complete the audit this year, which did require the outside firm to remain engaged and working with us in a time frame that they had not anticipated.
And Deb, we got a question in caucus, which I will ask. Actually, go ahead, Mr. James. Well, I say this all the time when we have contracts from people, and I know we had switched from one firm, we went with this firm a few years ago, and they bid the contract, and then we had a sizable price increase to do so. And these are the folks that when they go out in the field, they've ran into all these situations before, so when they're putting that contract together, they basically know that there's going to be some delays or some other avenues, and I'm sure they build a cushion into their contract, or most contractors do. I hate to see people come back and say, now, if it's our staff's fault, that's something different, then we have to own up to that and take ownership of that. But the last team that we had doing the audits, the complaint was that, there was some friction and people weren't getting the needed reports, or they weren't getting the reports done in time as the way we were wanting them done. I just don't like to see an increase like this. I don't see where it's warranted in my mind. On the delay part, I mean, that happens. I work with outside auditors in my business. They're well aware of these things happening because sometimes the banks are slow on getting reports back and that. So I just don't like it. I think when we have a contract, then maybe if it's going to be more to it, that they have to come back, or we should be informed and there be a change order to that contract that the full board agrees upon. Thank you. Ms. Schwartz?
I just wanted to make sure, actually, the delay is our fault.
Yeah.
So that part is absolutely our fault. It's unacceptable, and hopefully it will never happen again. But that part is fine. I think we should pay for that. The part, that letter that they have talks about also revisions. The revisions is part of the normal audit work. So I'm not really sure how they did the hours. 40 hours sounds to me pretty acceptable, because once we extend it, they have to follow all subsequent events. So once you extend the time, and this thing should be due in November. They were given the paperwork October 21st. You can't really do a reasonable audit, expect them to do it reasonably when you give it to them weeks before it's due. So it's absolutely our fault. I have no complaints about them charging us. But them saying that they actually had to do some revisions, and that's part of the extra charge, that's unacceptable too, because revisions is part of any audit. So I have no way to know how much of the 40 hours is what. And I understand it's already discounted, so I'm not going to argue about the exact dollar amount. I'm just saying the way they justified it doesn't really sound right to me.
Anybody feel like speaking to that? If not, sorry.
What Ms. Schwartz just said, it sounded like you said in a conversation I had with Ms. Busey this week. So, exactly what you said right there.
Mr. Richards.
This memo from Clifton Larson Allen, they certainly make it sound like the added money is our fault. And they're writing that there was a delay in receiving the CAFR, and as Ms. Schwartz said, there were numerous revisions. They just say that that happened. Can someone say why this happened and ended up increasing the price?
Anybody want to tackle that?
Mr. Farney,
Or,
it's your office.
I guess the question is, why did it take longer this year than?
The memo says that it was a delay in receiving the CAFR.
Yeah,
but they
it
don't
took
say
longer,
why.
it took longer because of the vacancy in the chief deputy position that started on August 1st of 2012. And then when Mr. Fabry did not have a chance to hire someone, we went 6 months with no CPA on staff. So we were starting the CAFR 6 months behind where the previous CPA continuously worked on this document.
Thank you, and I was going to ask, I mean, my assumption, and we had questions about this in caucus, my assumption is that this is a one-time event, that we don't expect this to, we expect this to cost next year what it cost last year.
I would expect, and go ahead.
I can speak to that. We have already started working on next year's. We have I'd call it a cleanup meeting with Clifton to just go over the last process, the beginning process. We've already set out a schedule. I've already started working on documents for next year's, things that we can already start working on. And so we have a pretty tight schedule, and it's something that we've agreed to with Clifton, and we know the goals that we have. We have told them what we expect from them as well, because much like the comments that Ms. Schwartz made, there are some things that they put in that memo that we don't agree with that, but we've told them what we expect from them as well. And so we're looking forward to it. And the spring's going to be very busy, but it's going to be done much, much earlier. But we've already made assignments for all the staff members. I think it's something new. We've actually assigned each staff member different parts of the report to work on. And then ultimately, our CPA will be reviewing those things and compiling a document.
Thank you, Ms. Petrie.
Can somebody remind me how long this contract with Clifton is?
Does it end after the fiscal year 2014 CAFR is produced, I believe? So it'll be basically the summer of 2015 when we get the final product. That's when their
And then we
services are
can
done.
have consideration of other possibilities. Thank you very much.
Any additional comments or questions on this budget amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Our next item, that motion carries. Our next item is Budget Amendment 14-0001. Now we're into budget amendments for the fiscal year 2014 budget. This is $26,392 revenue neutral to the RPC to receive their money that they are spending on a contract to do a study for Kankakee County. May I have a motion to send this to the full board with a recommendation for approval? Mr. Schroeder, Mr. Kurtz. Comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Likewise, on to 14-00002, also for the RPC, $25,000 pass-through for money, for receipt of money for Affordable Care Act Navigator programs. May I have a motion to send this to the full board with a recommendation for approval? Ms. Court and Mr. Hartke. Discussion or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. The motion carries. Budget Amendment 14-00003, Public Properties, $1,983. This is re-encumbering money for an elevator upgrade that we thought would happen last year, but didn't make it into the, didn't get in time. May I have a motion to send this to the full board with a recommendation for approval? I see Mr. Kibler and Mr. James. Comments, questions, or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Budget Amendment 14-0004. This is for $1,500 to the Veterans Assistance Commission to allow them to spend that money that was received in gifts in 2013 in the 2014 budget. I see a motion by Mr. Jay and a second by Mr. Langenheim. Any discussion or comments or questions? Ms. Petrie.
Another clarification question. The gentleman, when he gave his report, indicated they were out of money for December. So they've already had this money to spend previous to our taking care of it now?
This money was received as a gift in 2013. It was never appropriated. It was never budgeted by you.
I got
So what
it.
you're doing is
Okay.
appropriating it for 2014.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to the circuit clerk's items, we have two resolutions. Resolution increasing the Champaign County Circuit Court document storage fee and rescinding resolution number 8660, and the county court automation fee and rescinding resolution number 8666. We already did this, but there are some technical changes to the language, and I will let the circuit clerk speak to it as soon as I get a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kibler, seconded by Mr. McGuire. Yeah, yes, sir. I would like to move both of them in omnibus fashion, if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, these are just clerical in nature. When we were going to implement the fee increases as we were placing the resolutions on file, we noticed that there were a couple of errors in the resolutions themselves. As you may remember, there were exceptions to those fee increases, and they were for may appear traffic and small claims cases. And in one case, the resolution, the wording on that was unclear. So that was partly to clarify that it is only traffic cases that do not require a court appearance, not all traffic cases. And then the other was to include that exception, which is what you voted on. So I wanted to make sure that those are correct, partly for posterity, so that in however many, in the distant future, when I'm no longer circuit clerk, that those other clerks will understand that that's correct. And also because in the 4th Appellate District, in which we are a part, the Office of the Appellate Defender has been requesting copies of resolutions frequently regarding fee increases, so I want to make absolutely certain that we have all of that language correct. So that is.
Sounds like a good idea. Any comments or questions for the circuit clerk? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those motion carries. Thank you for being here. Moving on to the county administrator, we have the county administrator general corporate fund fiscal year 2013 budget report and fiscal year 2013 budget change report. I'd ask for a motion to accept these and place them on file. Moved by Mr. Quisenberry, second by Mr. Kibler. Deb.
These reports haven't changed much in the last month. We projected that general corporate would end with a $48,000 surplus last month, and this month it looks like a $44,000 deficit. We're getting very near the end. There are still some estimates in here, but I am fairly confident that the general corporate fund will end the year as nearly balanced as possible. Our revenues are projected and look as though they will come in at 100%, and our expenditures at right about 98%, but right now our expenditure budget is higher than our revenue budget, so that's how we end up balanced. The other thing I would point out is we may actually end up slightly better than this looks because we're adding 30 days to receive revenues from fiscal 13. So this may be, the actual outlook may be more optimistic than what you see here. We also have 30 extra days to post expenditures, though. We usually get all the expenditures posted in December. And then the budget change report, the only things that have changed are the last two items which were approved last month. The state's attorney Carl property tax case increase and the coroner's autopsy and lab costs.
And Deb, can you remind us what the bottom line was for the 2013 budget? For what was the total revenues?
Projected right now?
Yeah.
32.6 million, 32.7 million.
So 44,000 on 32.6 million, I'd say is pretty darn good. So thanks to everybody on this board for helping us make the budget balance. All those in favor of accepting and placing on file, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. I have no other business. Items for consent are D 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and E 1 and 2, and that concludes finance.
Thank you. Call for adjournment. Motion. So moved. Second? Okay. All in favor? We're adjourned.